Annie, we're going to talk to you a little bit about this.
Woo!
All right. Yes, cheers for Annie's new book, about to come out and be available on CreateSpace and Amazon.com. Unexpected Grace. So many of you have known that for the last 5.5 years, Annie has been working to write this book about the experiences that we've had with Gracie, particularly of her experiences of being a mother of a child with a congenital heart defect and going through major surgeries. And so, the first question I want to ask you is, why did you write Unexpected Grace?
Yes, okay, well, I have to tell a story in order to answer that question, and I love to tell stories. So please allow me to tell the story. So it really all began the morning of Gracie's first open heart surgery. At 3:30 in the morning, I woke up and couldn't fall back asleep, so started walking down to get ready for the day, and I just stopped at the top of the stairs, and just this incredibly loud thought just stopped me, and the thought was, you should write all of this down. And my very next thought was, that's a great idea. There's heart defects are the most common birth defect, affecting 1 out of 100 babies born today. And so my thought was, that's a great idea. Maybe this could help some people out there, some parents. Maybe a lot of people perhaps have been touched by a heart defect. So this would be just a way to help them. And of course, as I'm walking down the stairs, I'm just affirming this idea. Like, I'm thinking, this is exactly what Jerry Falwell would want me to do, right? Like every Wednesday at Liberty University, we went to convocation. On Wednesdays, every Wednesday, Jerry would speak, and he told us what? To go a little farther. Golf, didn't he tell us? He told us to dream big for Jesus. He told us to be champions for Christ. He told us, he encouraged us to, these BHAGs, was that Jerry Falwell? BHAGs to make big, hairy, audacious goals. He called them BHAGs. I mean, I'm just Jerry's kid, He trained me to think this way, and I just was trained also to think like a missionary, and I felt like I'm walking into this world, this new world of heart defects right now, and I want to be a missionary in this field. I want to tell people about Christ, that need Christ, and this was just affirmed more and more as I spent more time in the hospital. I would walk through the neonatal intensive care unit, the pediatric intensive care unit, and I would look into the doors and see parents in there just watching TV and having children who are just really struggling to live or who are very sick. And I just thought, I wish I could just sit down next to them and talk to them and point them to Jesus. But that might be kind of awkward. I don't have permission to really step into their room right now. I have not really been given that door. So I wanted to just write all this down and to help others. And when it got really hard, I gave up this project a few times. I thought, there's no way. I've got 4 small kids. I can't do this. But it was really out of obedience to Christ then that I felt like perhaps that voice was the voice of God encouraging me and not just my own thoughts. So obedience.
Well, one thought is just to say, I wouldn't recommend always asking the question, what would Jerry Falwell have me do?
True, true.
But as Liberty University grads, Annie was very inspired to dream big. But the second thing is, this sort of book would have helped us because at the beginning when you first run into a new world like this, of that, you don't know what to expect, and so it would be good for people to have some level of expectation about what it's like. So, second question, what do you think people would gain from reading Unexpected Grace? What would you hope they would gain?
What do I hope they would gain? Well, I mean, it has been my prayer for the
Should just parents who have children with a heart defect or a thing?
No, I'm hoping the audience is broader than that. I'm hoping this can be to all parents who maybe worry that something will happen to their child someday. It's just been my prayer for the last 5 years, as I've been pounding this out, typing this out, I've just been praying that God would use this in the lives of everyone who hears this story. If they are non-believers, it's been my prayer that God would use this to open their eyes to the spiritual reality that there is a God who created them. There's a God who loves them, who's intimately involved in every aspect of their lives. For Christians, I pray that this would encourage you in your faith as you continue to follow Christ, that Jesus is alive, He cares about you, and He will walk you through even the hardest trials. So I hope it's an encouragement. And I just pray that people would become Christians. I'm praying for my family members, my friends, my neighbors, just people I come in contact with. I'm excited The local librarians, I'm excited to hand this out, and it's just a way for me to personally share the gospel in the community.
I also, one of the things I like about the book, and I have read it many times already, is it really is about facing the questions that you had along the way head on. You know, questions you had about God, questions you had about your faith and trials and all of that. It's about how there's a type of confidence in God that comes on the other side of doubts and trials that we often don't have until we've walked through something challenging. So, so that's great. Third, the book's not only about your experience as a mother who has a child that went through 3 major surgeries. It's also about what you learned along the way. And so, what would you say, just in a sort of summary, a couple things? What have you learned?
Well, before I can answer that question, I just have to tell you like where I was coming from. I was really an over anxious mother. I was really full of a lot of anxiety when I would see other people with children who had special needs. I would just think to myself, there's no way I could handle that. There's absolutely no way. And I remember in 2008, we were getting ready to come to Iceland. We went through missionary training, and just they were really trying to set us up and say, you are going to face some trials on the mission field. You will face some trials. And I just thought, it's inevitable. Life is going to bring me trials. And I remember locking myself in a bathroom stall in the training center during one of the sessions, being like, I'm so petrified, God. I'm so paralyzed by the future. I'm paralyzed just thinking about the trials that the future contains. And so I just have struggled a lot. I struggled a lot with anxiety, and so I have just learned in this process, I have learned to fear the future less. And I'm just learning that God is there in the future. And as I look to the future now, I know the future will contain more trials than we've even experienced up till now, but I'm learning to fear the future less, and because God is there, and that's the big one. It's the big lesson.
It's kind of the big lesson.
Yeah, trusting God with the future, trusting God with the life of your child, because we don't know about tomorrow.
Often when we think about the future, we're anxious about the future, we don't think of it with God present in it with us, and I think that's one of the things probably we learned along the way, and that God is there. He's with us in the midst of even our difficulties. So, last question. The book is dedicated to 2 people. One of them is Gracie, which is obvious, and the other is Noelle Devon. Why her?
Yeah, well, I don't really want to tell you all of that. That's kind of a spoiler. But you just have to know what you need to know is that Noelle Devon was a very, very special person that God dropped into our life. She was a palpable, I don't know if I said that word right, reminder of just God's presence in our lives during the most difficult part of this trial. God showed himself to us, that he was watching us. And through this girl, Noelle Devon, we called her our Texas Angel. So some of you know about her, but those of you who don't know about Noelle Devon, you will have to read this story, because this story is the story of really 2 stories woven into one. It's about God, how God took care of us, and he used a girl named Noelle Devon to do that.